Over 2,000 years ago, the life and death of one man launched the world into a new era. Today, the messages of that event continue to echo throughout creation. Billions of people around the globe study the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. I'm Teresa Crouch. Join me this week exclusively on MetroCast Channel 10 as we walk through these events as recorded in the Gospel of Matthew, and consider how these events apply directly to you. Join me on a journey through Holy Week. Today is Monday, and things are pretty much back to business as usual in the ancient city of Jerusalem. Yesterday, there was quite a stir in the city when Jesus of Nazareth made his entry with huge crowds of people following him and singing his praises. It's Passover week, the most celebrated holiday for all of Judaism. This is the week where Jewish people celebrate their release from captivity in Egypt. It's a holy week filled with ceremony and tradition. However, the religious leaders in Jerusalem were not as enthusiastic about Jesus' arrival. They were determined to quiet this Jesus of Nazareth as he was a threat to everything they believed about God. The events we will walk through this week will outline just how determined they were. But today, Jesus is back to business as usual as well. He is teaching and preaching in Jerusalem and still making quite a stir. Today we're going to listen to Jesus teaching the parable of the talents. And as we listen, consider where you are in his story. I'm not sure about you, but I'm not always good at managing my resources. As a matter of fact, I'm not good at all at managing my resources, but over the years, I certainly have improved. But when I was, let's say, 20-something, and I was in college, I was terrible at managing my resources. One summer, I had an amazing opportunity to work a summer job and save money while I worked for the fall semester. Well, it didn't work out as planned. My parents were counting on me saving money so that I would have money to spend during the semester, but I kind of spent all the money. So my managing of resources wasn't probably what it should have been, because there was something else that happened to me over that summer. I fell in love. Have you ever been in love? It kind of makes you do crazy things sometimes. But that summer, this is before cell phones were invented, that gives you a little bit idea of my age, but we're not really going to go there. Let's just say there were no cell phones, and I had a calling card. Some of you might remember calling cards, and for those of you who have no idea what a calling card is because you have cell phones now, it's basically a credit card that allows you to make long-distance phone calls. And not only did I work all summer and spend every dime I had on some really amazing stuff. I got some great shoes, went to some shows, ate dinner out all the time, but I also was spending a great deal of time on the phone to my new love. And calling cards, funny thing, cost money. And by the end of the summer, I had racked up an $800 phone bill. Needless to say, my dad was not very thrilled with me because it was his calling card that I had used. I had wasted all my resources and I had absolutely no money to pay my dad back. Thankfully, he had mercy on me, he had grace for me, and he didn't make me pay all the money back at once. But believe me, my dad did make me pay the money back because he cares about how I manage my resources. But I got to wondering about this. Have you ever wasted something? Maybe you got paid on Friday and by Saturday night you're completely broke? Have your kids ever wasted something, like juice boxes? I know I come home and there are juice boxes all over the place. They can't even get them in the trash can after they've wasted them. What about if you're a student? Did you wait till the very last minute to write that 15-page paper? Maybe at work, you spent all day on Facebook, and then it's 5 o'clock, and you haven't accomplished anything. But we won't tell, because I bet you probably played Candy Crush a little too. What about with your spouse? You talk and talk about cutting out time for each other and making a date night happen, but it never does, because it doesn't make the priority list. Some of us manage our resources really well, but some of us, like me, we need a little more help. But managing our resources isn't something that's just for today, and it's not something that isn't important in the life of God. As Jesus was teaching and preaching during the week of Passover, he taught about this very subject. Because not unlike me, when I left for college, I was away from my family. I was doing something different than I had ever done before. And Jesus was teaching the disciples that he was going to be going away soon and wouldn't have him with them there to help them manage everything that they needed to. So he taught this parable called the parable of the three servants about how we are intended to manage the resources that God gives us. And that's not just money, as it was in my case, but it's also our time, what we value, how we spend our days, and what is ultimately important to us. So listen here from the Gospel of Matthew. Again, the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. He called together his servants and entrusted his money to them while he was gone. One, he gave 5 bags of silver, 2 bags of silver to another, and 1 bag of silver to the last, dividing it in proportion to their abilities. He then left on his trip. The servant who received the 5 bags of silver began to invest his money, and he earned 5 more. The servant with 2 bags of silver also went to work and earned 2 more. But the servant who received 1 bag of silver dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. After a long time, their master returned from his trip and called them to give an account of how they had used their money. The servant to whom he had entrusted 5 bags of silver came forward and said, "I have earned 5 more from the 5 that you gave me to invest." The master was full of praise. "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together." The servant who had received 2 bags of silver came forward and said, "Master, you gave me 2 bags of silver to invest, and I have earned 2 more." The master said, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let us celebrate together." Then the servant with the 1 bag of silver came and said, "Master, I knew you were a harsh man, harvesting crops you didn't plant and gathering crops that you didn't cultivate. I was afraid I would lose your money, so I hid it in the earth. Look, here's your money back." But the master replied, "You wicked and lazy servant. If you knew I was harvesting crops and I didn't plant, and I gathered crops I didn't cultivate, why didn't you deposit the money in a bank? At least I could have earned some interest on it." Then he ordered, "Take the money from this servant and give it to the one with the 10 bags of silver. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. Now throw this useless servant into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Well, that's quite a long passage of scripture, but it has so much to tell us about how we are to manage our resources. I want to take a few moments to have some observations about the scripture that we just read. And if you look with me, my first observation is, in God's kingdom, we are entrusted to participate. Jesus begins this parable by describing the kingdom of heaven. See, Jesus is the master and we are the servants. In this story, he is preparing his disciples for his death, his resurrection, and his ascension into heaven. He's trying to get them to see that he is going away, but they will have work to do while he is gone. He trusts them to work just as diligently while he is away as while he is with them. When I was a little girl, at times I would do babysitting jobs. I remember my very first babysitting job. I think I was probably around 12 years old. And I was completely shocked that someone would entrust me to babysit their child. I wasn't around little kids a lot because I was the littlest kid in my family, so there were no siblings after me for me to watch and take care of. But I truly enjoyed being around the children. I got all excited. I took, the safe babysitting class through Girl Scouts. I got my CPR card. I had a list. I had a journal. I had contact numbers. I was completely prepared for babysitting. But then the call came, and I was really nervous. I could not believe that someone was actually going to let me take care of their baby. It was a family that went to our church, and they had called and said, "Hey, would you please take care of our daughter? She's about 1.5." And I was thrilled. The night came, I went over, I had my list, I was all prepared, I had everything ready. But then it came time to feed her dinner. I had no idea what to do. That wasn't on my list. I had no idea how to feed her dinner. Did she still drink a bottle? Did she eat soft food? Did she eat regular foods? I had no idea. But I ended up cutting up a hot dog into about 1,000 million teeny tiny pieces because I didn't want her to choke or get hurt in any way. But the whole time I'm on the phone with my mom. Am I doing this right? Is it okay? I felt this pressing responsibility to make sure that while the parents were away, that they had entrusted their child to me, that I was going to make good use of my resources so that it would be a good experience for everyone involved. I was kind of humbled and kind of honored all at the same time that they would let someone like me take care of something so precious to them. But that's kind of how God asks us to interact. He entrusts us with very precious things, other people in His kingdom, not just our resources, but actual human beings. But we are entrusted to participate. Observation number 2. We are given resources according to our ability, which leads to diversity. Now, this is a difficult concept for someone like me to swallow. I want everything to be fair and equal. But I came to realize that fairness isn't sameness, or equality isn't sameness. It all boils down to value. We all have a wide variety of resources and abilities, and it creates a beautiful diversity. The fact is, not everyone is going to be rich. And the fact is, not everyone is going to be poor. Not everyone is going to be super intelligent. Not everyone is going to be overly talented. Not everyone is going to have the same opportunities. But value is not tied up in our ability. Our value is tied up in that we are entrusted to participate because God has called us to do so. Being different doesn't mean less. One of my children is 22 years old and he has autism. And the journey of raising a special needs child has taught this point to me more than I can even describe to you. Difference is not less. Difference leads to diversity, and it is God's intended way of being in this world. My son has many gifts and talents that other people do not have, but he also has less ability in some areas where other people seem to succeed easily. But he is different, and he is beautiful. He is diverse, and he is a child of God. But because we are different and we have different abilities, does not make us less. Being different is good, not less, and it is not a matter of value. Observation number 3. We are intended to be productive. In the creation account of Genesis, of how the world was made, God created humanity, both male and female. And the scripture in Genesis 28 says this: "Then God blessed them and said, 'Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and govern it, reign over the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky and all the animals that scurry along the ground.'" We are not supposed to be stagnant. It is not enough just to be a participant in life as a ride along. we have to be doing something. We're intended to be productive. We're created that way. We're entrusted by God to take care of the things that He has given us to take care of. We must participate in the life that we have been given, because if we don't, at the end of our life, we'll have missed our entire purpose. See, some of us think that we can slip through life pretty much unnoticed by God and that it doesn't really matter what we do, but that is simply not the case. We will be face to face with Jesus one day, and we will be asked to account for what we have done with what He has given us. How we spend our lives matters. This past weekend, I had a great weekend. I got to go away with some of my friends, go to Annapolis, get out of town for a little while, relax, do some shopping, some eating. It was just a really nice break. And when I came home, I was kind of worried because I thought, oh, what is waiting for me at home? I have a ton of kids, and my house is pretty messy, to say the least. But I had a wonderful surprise waiting for me when I walked through the door. It was late in the evening, probably around 11:30, and I opened up my kitchen door from the garage, and my house was spotless. That never happens, especially if I'm not there. It might be spotless for like 5 minutes, but then somebody comes home and that's all over. But my house was beautiful. The cabinets were clean. Everything had been wiped off. The floors were swept and mopped. Everything was hung up and put away. There were no backpacks, no lunch boxes. It was awesome. But my husband was the one responsible for this. He had been extremely productive while I was gone. He made use of his time and resources, and it blessed me in a way that you can't imagine. I know he probably doesn't want me telling you about this because now he's going to think that I'm going to expect it all the time. And I might, and it would be nice if he did. But he made valuable use of his resources, and he was extremely productive, and it had a very positive outcome. Observation number 4. Our view of God impacts our productivity. Now see, the third servant in this parable had a distorted view of God. He thought that the master was a hard man, and he already had accepted the fact that he was not going to be able to meet the challenge. He admits that he is afraid of what might happen, so he decides it's better just to do nothing. He makes no effort to invest or use his resources in any way. He simply digs a hole and buries the money. Oh, beloved, how many times do we do this ourselves? I am tempted to do this all the time. I feel like if I can't be the best at something, or that I fear that I might fail, my first inclination is to do absolutely nothing at all. One of the things that I deal with in my personal life is that I suffer from anxiety and panic attacks. And this fact has kept me in a box for many years of my life. It has prevented me from being productive and doing something productive with the gifts and talents that God has entrusted to me. But not anymore, because I have come to an understanding that even though I could have a panic attack or I might experience anxiety about doing something productive for the kingdom of God, that doesn't mean I shouldn't do it. Because what I have learned is that God has been so faithful. Every time I take a step out and reach out to Him to support me in using the resources that He has given me, He meets me there. He's faithful to do what He says He's going to do. He says in His word, I will never leave you or forsake you. And I can tell you and testify to you that that is 100% the truth. That doesn't mean that I don't on occasion have a panic attack or experience anxiety, but God is always there. And I will not continue to let panic or anxiety keep me from wisely using the resources that God has gave me. Because He has shown me that He will bless my efforts. Observation number 5. Our actions or our inactions have consequences. In this story, the servants experienced huge consequences. The first two servants, who used what they had wisely, were given even more to manage. The third servant had all that he had taken away, and he was cast out. We will experience consequences to our actions and our lack of action. It seems so simple, but yet we tend to think it won't really happen. We fool ourselves into believing that even though God is kind and merciful and benevolent, that He won't hold us accountable for squandering and wasting things that He has given us to use to benefit His kingdom. But that's not true. We will be accountable for what we do, and there are consequences to our actions. I mentioned earlier that I have several children, and one of the most complicated things that happens around our house is managing chores. I also mentioned that our house is messy and chaotic, and that is true. But we devised a system not too long ago where the children get paid a certain amount of money according to the chores that they do. My husband is very good at making sheets and charts and spreadsheets. So he came out and he wrote a list of everything that the kids can do. If you make your bed, you get a quarter. If you do this, you get a quarter. And he made this whole list. Now my daughter, who is almost 8 years old, is extremely motivated by this list. She loves being given money and being given the chance to earn money. So she'll go and she'll make her bed and she'll do everything. Mom, can I clean the windows? Can I clean the toilet? Can I do this? The child is asking to clean the toilet. That's how motivated she is about doing the chore chart. So I'm thinking, this is amazing. She is just on this like nothing I have ever seen. But then a funny thing started to happen because she also has a little brother, and her little brother annoys her. I think that's pretty normal, right? But instead of just being annoyed, she's decided that she is going to start calling her little brother names to express her displeasure with him. So I've had enough. I've said, time to stop. So I changed the rules. I said, every time that you call your brother a name, it's going to cost you $1. What? You're going to take away my resources? But I've earned those. But I've done what I said I was going to do. Nope. You were entrusted to do what you were to do, and your father decided to give you the resources. Now, my daughter, being the brilliant 8-year-old child that she is, went upstairs and got the sheet of paper. And she came down and she brought it to me and she said, "It doesn't say that here in writing." But our action and inaction have consequences. If we do what we're supposed to do, but don't treat each other kindly, we will be held accountable. I want to take one moment just to do an application point from this scripture. And this, to me, is the most poignant part of the story. It's not about the resources, and it's not about us. It's about God. We have to understand that it is not us, but it is God who does the giving. Our urge to compare ourselves to one another is our enemy's greatest tool in derailing us from our purpose. Our culture has sold us a bill of goods that says if we work hard enough, if we strive hard enough, we will attain an American dream. But we have fallen for this lie over and over again. We tell ourselves, I deserve to be rich. I deserve to be smart. I have the right to be famous and noticed. But our need to compare breeds resentment and bitterness, and it leads us to placing value on very temporal things. Value of humanity was settled on the cross of Jesus Christ. You are loved and you are valued so much, not because of what you can do, but because of who you are. You are loved so much that the cross was the only way that God, who created you, could redeem you from sin. Each of us are completely equal at the foot of that cross, and no other comparison needs to exist. Say a quick prayer with me, and we'll close out. Dear Lord, we thank you for entrusting us to participate with you in this thing that we call life. And Lord, we just ask that you reveal to us what our resources are and how we can invest them and use them wisely to make your kingdom known in our community. Amen.